Good afternoon, folks. Welcome back to the Food for the Faithful channel with me, Bill Reimer. You're ever so reluctant, always reluctant prophet, because I actually don't like having to constantly warn people about what to me appears obvious. One of the great problems of our time exists due to addressing the symptoms of a problem rather than examining and addressing said problem's root cause or causes. No physician worth his salt will merely treat the symptoms of an illness without addressing the disease's root cause or causes. We see this in the way that the state, in concert with international healthcare authorities, develop public health policies for COVID-19. A mere few short years ago, we were being censored for merely suggesting that the virus originated in the self-same level 4 laboratory in Wuhan where Pfizer had been developing mRNA technology. But worse than this initial failure of correctly assessing how the virus originated and how best to treat it, we know that the big lie ostensibly appears to be a continuance of the CIA's MK-Ultra mind control. Western governments, including Trump's first administration, fully cooperated with and helped to fund the CCP's military who run the biolab in Wuhan. So let's examine just a short blurb from Wikipedia on MK-Ultra. Project MK-Ultra is a human experimentation program designed and undertaken by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, to develop procedures and identify drugs that could be used during interrogations to weaken individuals and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture. The term MK-Ultra is a CIA cryptonym. MK is an arbitrary prefix standing for the Office of Technical Service, and Ultra is an arbitrary word out of a dictionary used to name the project. The program has been widely condemned as a violation of individual rights and an example of the CIA's abuse of power, with critics highlighting its disregard for consent and its corrosive impact on democratic principles. End of quote from Wikipedia. To date, there has not been an official admission of the sheer level of mind control which was used by state actors to manipulate public opinion. This was particularly effective amongst those who have a high level of trust in the state so long as it pursues a progressive agenda aimed at radically transforming society into a mind meld of socialist conformity. So, what can history tell us about similar attempts to radically transform society? What happened when the advocates of change refused to examine the damage caused by such radical transformation? What damages were caused in maintaining functional socio-economic order? So let me begin with the following two quotes from periods of British history where the kingdom had descended into civil unrest. Anarchy is not so much the absence of government as the government of the worst. Not aristocracy, but kakistocracy, a state of things which, to the honor of our nature, has seldom obtained amongst men, and which perhaps was only fully exemplified during the worst times of the French Revolution, when that horrid hell burnt with its most horrid flame. In such a state of things, to be accused is to be condemned, just as it was during COVID. To protect the innocent is to be guilty. And what perhaps is the worst effect, even men of better nature, to whom their own deeds are abhorrent, are goaded by terror to be forward and emulous in deeds of guilt and violence. That's a quote from Thomas Love Peacock. The next quote: therefore, we need not make any scruple of praying against those sanctimonious incendiaries who have fetched fire from heaven to set their country in combustion, who have pretended religion to raise and maintain a most wicked rebellion, against those Neros who have ripped up the womb of the mother that bare them and wounded the breast that gave them suck, against those cannibals who feed upon the flesh and are drunk with the blood of their own brethren, against those Catalans who seek their private ends in the public disturbance and have set the kingdom on fire to roast their own Agus, against those tempests of the state, those restless spirits who can no longer live than be stickling and meddling, who are stung with a perpetual itch of changing and innovating and transforming our old hierarchy into a new presbytery, and this again into a newer independency, and our well-tempered monarchy into a mad kind of kakistocracy. Good Lord. From Paul Gosnold's A Sermon Preached at the Public Fast the 9th day of August 1644 at St. Mary's, Oxford, before the honourable members of the two Houses of Parliament there assembled. The word kakistocracy was first coined as early as the 17th century and derives from two Greek words, kakistos, meaning worst, and kratos, meaning rule, together meaning government by the worst people. The earliest use of the word dates back to the 17th century in the speech given by Paul Gosnold. I will keep stating the following until the following is fully understood. Most conservatives completely fail to understand the grip, the sheer power of ideological possession. What are the successes of MKUltra in manipulating public opinion through psychological abuse and mind control? When the West agreed to cooperate with the Soviet Union to defeat Nazi Germany, our leaders used cultural Marxist critical theory by incorporating its thinking into the forerunner of the CIA. Wild Bill Donovan used the Frankfurt School's ideas to defeat both Soviet Marxism and Nazism. The CIA has since been using our universities to spread postmodernism and critical theory ever since. Europeans have never really understood limited constitutional government. The idea of Parliament limiting the king is an entirely English and therefore a British and in turn American construct. This is why almost all European countries are still governed by coalition legislative bodies. In other words, rule by the blob, of the blob, and for the blob. The EU has become a fulfillment of a socio-economic confederacy dominated by Germany, just as the Führer intended. Tyranny was always waiting to pounce like a lion on any semblance of freedom that the West ever knew. Type critical theory and postmodernism into any search engine of your choosing to examine the curriculum being taught at all major Western universities. The humanities departments of these institutions have become the weaponized tools by which radical social engineers have taken the long neo-Marxist march through our institutions. We are in an ideological battle where most so-called right-wingers have no understanding of what they are fighting, but much worse. They appear not to care. Many conservatives are people who prefer bombastic leaders for several reasons. Here I will cite them. Charisma and confidence. Bombastic leaders often exude charisma and confidence, which can be appealing to followers. Their assertiveness and boldness can inspire trust and admiration. 2. Clear vision. These leaders often present a clear and compelling vision for the future. Their strong rhetoric can make their ideas seem more achievable and attractive. 3. Decisiveness. Bombastic leaders tend to make decisions quickly and assertively. This decisiveness can be reassuring to people who prefer clear direction and action. 4. Emotional appeal. Their passionate and energetic communication style can resonate emotionally with people, making them feel more connected and motivated. 5. Perceived strength. Bombastic leaders are often seen as strong and capable of handling challenges. This perception can be comforting to followers who seek stability and security. And 6. Media influence. The media often highlights and amplifies the actions and statements of bombastic leaders, increasing their visibility and influence, either negatively or positively. Of course, people that detest the left wing, if the left wing is condemning a right-wing leader for taking action, the conservatives are more likely to admire that person for being condemned by the Fourth Estate. But invariably, the following issues are deliberately being ignored. 1. Polarization. Bombastic leaders often use divisive rhetoric that can polarize societies. This can lead to increased tension and conflict among different groups. 2. Oversimplification. These leaders may present complex issues in overly simplistic terms, which can lead to misguided policies and decisions. Their black and white thinking can ignore the nuances and complexities of real-world problems. 3. Authoritarian tendencies. Bombastic leaders often exhibit authoritarian tendencies, such as undermining democratic institutions and processes. This can erode the rule of law and threaten democratic governance. 4. Impulsiveness. Their tendency to make quick, assertive decisions can sometimes lead to impulsive and poorly thought-out actions. This can have serious consequences, especially in matters of national or international importance, as we see today with American influence and in the Canadian political sphere. Manipulation. Bombastic leaders can manipulate public opinion through emotional appeals and sensationalism. This can lead to a misinformed and manipulated populace, which can be detrimental to a healthy democracy. And 6. Short-term focus. These leaders often prioritize short-term gains and immediate results over long-term planning and sustainability. This can lead to policies that are not economically viable for the prosperity and economic well-being of future generations. If you think that these characteristics do not describe Trump, then you're an ideologically possessed fool. Ask yourselves, since you rightly condemn the left for doing precisely the same thing, why you're so willingly duped or blind to your own desire to forego reason to march in unthinking lockstep with others with whom you identify. Don't you condemn the left for doing precisely the same? A true conservative is someone who believes in personal accountability and self-reliance. They will not place their faith in politicians, no matter how much they admire them. Politics by its very nature is based upon manipulation. This is why conservatives are very often Christians. They understand the fallen nature of humanity and that there is only one Savior, Christ Jesus, and Him crucified and resurrected, sitting at the right hand of God the Father to judge the living and the dead and to judge wicked rulers. If you have placed your faith in man, any man, no matter who they are, I will tell you what you are not, and what you are. You are not a conservative. You're an ideologically possessed idolater. Do I really need to remind you that Pierre Poilievre was a shoo-in for PM until Trump resurrected the Monroe Doctrine to threaten Canadian sovereignty, then effectively crown Mark Carney as our new PM. Legislative bodies came into being as a direct result of Magna Carta. The king, or the executive branch of government, was forced to bring their request to levy taxes to Parliament to receive approval for further expenditures or to pass legislation. Most of the major policies enacted by Trump to date have been by executive order, thereby ignoring the need for democratic consent of his policies. It does not matter how excellent his policies are. Trump is not a king. The executive branch of government must never operate without being limited by the legislative branch of government. America herself was literally founded upon this principle, since the king had attempted to levy taxation without the colonists being represented in Parliament in London. Most of you who call yourself conservatives have no understanding of the political history of the very system of government you claim to espouse. I know I have just wasted my time by writing these demonstrable facts. I do so that when all is said and done, I will not be found wanting in my duty to tell my readers and listeners the unvarnished truth, not placing my faith in mere men, but in God, and in God alone. 2 Timothy 2, King James Version, starting with verse 13 and ending with verse 15. If we believe not, yet he abideth faithful. He cannot deny himself. One of these things put them in remembrance. Of these things put them in remembrance, charging them before the Lord that they strive not about words to no profit, but to the subverting of the hearers. Study to show yourself approved unto God. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. I create these vlogs, blogs, vodcasts, whatever you wish to call them, to rightly divide the word of truth. If you can find a scriptural justification to prove me wrong, please do so. I state only demonstrable fact. We are in a very, very dire situation. God bless you. These are things to think and pray about on this May the 25th, 2025.